Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. We are the UX design people. My name is Blessing, your channel host, and in this channel we share tips, inspirations, ideas, concepts, and everything related to UX design. In today's episode, we are going to be we are going to be summarizing a book, a UX book, and the title of the book is The Design of Everyday Things by Don Norman. In this episode, we are just going to be highlighting some important points for you to note from the book. If you haven't read the book, I truly encourage you, you need to read it. And it's a book that they usually tell people that are trying to go into UX design for the first time to go and read. So if you've read this book, let me know what you think about it. Do you believe everything that was said? There are actually some points there. As we go into the video, you would hear some points there and you're like, okay, is this true? Is this necessarily true? But then I would say most, because I don't agree with all of the points. And at the end of the video, you will see some points that I do not agree with. But then most of the points are things that we should actually do. If we use these principles in our day-to-day designs, in our product design and everything, we are going to get it right. We are going to be able to design products that are actually functional and enjoyable. Before we get started, if you have not subscribed to this channel, please do hit the subscribe button now and become a part of the family, become a part of the community. If you have subscribed before, thank you very much for subscribing, and then don't forget to turn on your notifications so that you don't miss any of my videos when they drop. If you enjoy my content, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share to all your friends, especially those in UX design. Welcome back. Without wasting much of our time, let's just get into it. Like I said, we are going to be highlighting some important points from the book, The Design of Everyday Things. And the book actually focuses on how design influences human behavior, especially in terms of usability and functionality, interaction with everyday objects. Basically, from the title, The Design of Everyday Things, we can see that it's talking about products that we use often, products that have become part of our lifestyle, part of our day-to-day life. And examples of these products, we have our mobile phones, apps on our mobile phones, gadgets, electronics, like our fans, our ACs, our dishwashers, washing machines, and the likes. Even our doors, our staircases, our key holders, our cars, everything we use, everything we come across on a day-to-day. Don Norman argues that bad design leads to frustration, anger, and other negative emotions. I think I mentioned in one of my videos, dark patterns. Yes, dark patterns in UX design, that we have different emotions that are generally part of us, essentially, they are naturally part of us as human beings. And the emotions can be positive or negative. Positive emotions are elicited when good things happen. You want to achieve a goal and you end up achieving it. That elicits positive emotions from you, like joy or love. But by the time you start something and you encounter a problem, you want to open a door and the door is just not opening, or you want to operate a machine or a gadget and it's just not working, you don't know how to use it. Usually you get frustrated because you don't know what is wrong, you don't know how to recover yourself from whatever it is, like the current situation. You really don't know what to do. So you are frustrated, you are angry. Most times you just leave it, or you destroy something, or you find another product to use. So usually when you are designing, as a designer, you need to know that your decisions go a long way. And when you design something and it's not good enough, you are pushing the users away. People don't want to use a product that takes them a long time to learn how to use. They want to use a product and it feels very natural for them to use it. So when you are designing, know that you are eliciting emotions from people, and you definitely want to elicit the positive ones. Apart from frustration, anger, and other emotions, bad design also can lead to accidents. Yes, accidents can actually occur as a result of bad design. let's say you're operating a machine for the first time and you're not sure how to use it. You are trying to read the manual, but it's just not clear. The design of the machine is not intuitive enough to tell you what to do at a certain time. You might end up cutting yourself. You might end up, let's say it's an oven and you forget to turn off the gas or something, or probably the setting that you put is too high because you're just using it for the first time. Things like that can actually cause loss of property or damage to your property. It can cause loss of a limb or even loss of life. You can see now that bad design can cause accidents and even loss of lives and property. Basically, our role as designers is not just to create products that are aesthetically pleasing and all of that, beautiful, catchy and stuff, but also to create products that are functional and work seamlessly within our human abilities and limitations. Now, let's quickly go to chapter 1. The title of chapter 1 is The Psychopathology of Everyday Things. The first point to note in this chapter is a well-designed everyday product needs no manuals or signs. This is as straightforward as it sounds. A product that you use every day, a gadget you use every day, actually needs no manual or signs. I don't know if you relate with this, but users don't need to start reading instructions for things that they use every day. They don't. You buy a phone and you are reading the manuals on how to turn it on, how to navigate, how to swipe from left to right. Like, really, I don't think anybody does that. I mean, I don't want to generalize, but then I don't. And I think it applies to most of the objects that we use. Something that you use every day, your doorknob, your fan, your AC. For people that read manuals, probably they are using that type of gadget for the very first time and they just want to get the hang of it. But generally, a well-designed product, an everyday product, needs no signs, needs no manual. So when you are going to the mall and you now see a sign on the door telling you how to enter, how to use the door, push, pull, that means it's badly designed, because this thing is supposed to be used every day by like thousands of people on average in a day, and they are still telling them how to use it, how to push, how to pull. It's a badly designed product. Now, complex devices like heavy machinery and all of that, those ones obviously need manuals for the operators to know how to use them. So don't say, oh, since it's a product, then nothing needs a manual. Obviously, complex machinery needs manuals or instructional guides. The second point is machines follow rules. Don't blame the user. Blame the product and its manufacturers or designers. This is very important to note. Machines don't create themselves. It's people that make machines, and machines literally take the programs, take in the instructions that the creator puts in them. So if you design something, then we expect that device, that product will behave the exact way you programmed it to do. If you make an input field compulsory in a design, let's say you are designing something and you make the input field compulsory, but you didn't put it there that, okay, this field is compulsory or this field is required. If the user goes ahead to try to submit the form without filling that field, it's obviously going to throw up an error, and it's basically what you did, what you designed. So if that kind of thing happens, you should not blame the user like, oh, didn't you see the form? It's obvious that you did not make it you did not indicate that this is actually a required field. So yeah, don't blame the user, blame the manufacturers. And I want to note, I mean, I will explain it much later, but then don't now assume that for every error that occurs on a device or on a product, then definitely you must blame the designer or the developers or the manufacturers of that product. No. But then about 80% of the time, then it's the product itself that is at fault, that is defective, not the human or the agent that is using it. Because now, one thing you should know, one thing that I learned in this book, it's not like I just learned it, but then it just struck me when I was reading this book, is that it's not only humans that use products nowadays, okay? And this book was even written, I think, 2013 or 2012. the latest edition. And then it was already even talking about artificial intelligence and the likes. So now it's not just humans that use products. AI uses products, you know. So you can't just say humans anymore. Now you have to start designing for both humans and I don't want to delve so much into that, but then let's move on. Number three, we must design on the assumption that people will make errors. Literally, there's a saying that to err is human. You cannot go through your whole life without making one mistake or the other. As designers, we have to take that into consideration. We have to have backups for when people make errors. Okay. Now, design is a mix of technology and psychology. That's number four. Yes, design is a mix of technology and psychology. Now, imagine you have, I don't know if you are familiar with Venn diagrams. You have one circle like this, you have another circle like this. So, the intersection of the two circles, you have design just in between. That is where design is. And it means that design is not just us, going, being a designer is not just us going online, learning, joining boot camps, learning how to be a UX designer, learning how to be a product designer. It's also about studying people. So it's not just about learning principles of UI design, It makes little to no sense to just decide to focus on the technology part of design without focusing on the psychology part. You have to study human behavior and then design around them. We are going to talk about that in a bit. The next point here is affordances determine what actions are possible, while signifiers communicate where the action should take place. I've explained this a lot. I created a video about affordances and signifiers. If you have not watched it, please check it out. I'll include the link in the description. So just watch it. Simply put, it means that affordance is a kind of relationship between a product or a design or an item and the properties of the agent using that item. You understand it? So it's not just a characteristic. I explained all this in that video, so just check it out. It's not just the characteristics or the properties of a particular item or product. It is the relationship that the object has with, the relationship that the properties of that object has with the properties of the person or agent or AI using it. That's how it works. So it's like a relationship. Is about what that object can afford the person using it. For signifiers are just telling the agent using the object where exactly or how exactly to use the object. So that's basically that. Then number 6, feedback is communicating the results of an action. Yes, feedback is just feeding you back. You've done something, you want to know the status, was it successful or not? Is this what I want it to do? Is it meeting my goal? Something like that. So feedback is just communicating the results of an action, and it must be immediate, it must be informative, and it must be planned. Let me just break it down. Immediate means that as you are performing the action, as the action is complete, immediately you give feedback. You don't wait for a while because the human memory is quite limited and you don't want to wait until they've forgotten the action that even took place before you give them feedback. So feedback must be immediate. You want them to know immediately the status of their action and to enable them recover if there was a mistake, if there was an issue with the action. You want to make them retry immediately. And if it's successful, you want them to just move on to other things. It gives them that satisfaction that, okay, yes, I've got this, I can do this. So your user is pleased when they get immediate feedback. Now, informative basically, you want to communicate clearly. Your feedback has to be clear and concise. If you are using text, it has to exactly describe what has happened. Is it successful or not? What exactly is the status of this action? Is it even pending? Pending is also a feedback. It means, okay, this thing is going to take some time. Then you communicate the amount of time that you're expecting it to take. All those things. I can't explain all these in details in this video, but just grab the little things. This is a highlight video. And while trying to make your feedback informative, you make sure that your feedback is not too much or too little. You are trying to communicate, but you don't want to send in a whole paragraph of information just because you are giving feedback. So make sure that the feedback is not too much or too little. If it's too little, it might not give the exact information that they are looking for. And then don't okay, that's the third point. Feedback must be planned. That is, the timing of feedback is very important. You don't want to send feedback through all these signals at the same time. So just imagine you're in a hospital. This is an example from the book, by the way. They are in a hospital and you there's an emergency, and then all the alarms start blaring and you don't even know where the sound is coming from. So feedback must be planned. You make sure that it's like one at a time. You make sure that important signals are prioritized. Yeah, that's where the planning comes in. Important signals have to be prioritized so that you know what to attend to first. Feedback does not have to be obtrusive or overwhelming. Just make sure that they are receiving the most important feedback first before others come in. That's essentially what chapter 1 is about. Let's quickly move to chapter 2. The first point here in chapter 2 is there are two parts to an action: executing the action and then evaluating the results. That is, doing and interpreting. Yeah, this is actually, this chapter 2 is kind of like my favorite chapter because it has a lot of things for you to learn as a designer. Like, I would suggest, if you are reading this book, even when you are done, you can just go back to chapter 2 and read it again if you have the time, because it exposes you to a lot of things which I won't be covering in this video. There are two parts to an action: the parts where you do the action and the parts where you evaluate the results of your action. You understand? So you have the doing and the interpreting. Now, this part is what Don Norman refers to as the gulf of execution. That is, the gap between what a user wants to do and how, or the steps that are needed to be taken to achieve that goal. While this side is the gulf of evaluation, and that is the gap between the user's expectations of an outcome and the ability to perceive the results of their actions. So basically, on this side, you have what you want to do, but you don't know how to meet that goal. But here, you've already done that thing, but you are trying to see if your goal has been met. That's here, you are evaluating the result of what you did here. Now, a user goes through these two goals in a cyclical manner. That is, when a user is about to take an action, the first thing they do is to have a goal. What you want is, you want oranges in the house. Okay. Now, how do you do that? What are the things you need to do to buy oranges? Are you going to the market to buy it, or are you going to shop online? If you look at the image on my screen, you are going to see the goal on top here. And on this side, you have this bridge of execution. It's the same thing as the gulf of execution. Designers must bridge the gap between the goal and the execution of that task. That is, I mentioned earlier that the gulf of execution is the gap between the goal of the user and the steps that need to be taken to achieve that goal. Designers must be the ones to bridge that gap. And how do they do that? You have a goal. We show you how to meet that goal. We show you the steps to take. We show you how to do them. We show you when to do them, where to do them. So basically, that is bridging the gap of execution, or connecting your goal to the execution of that goal. How do you do that? There are different stages. So after the goal, you have plan, you have specify, you have perform. That is, you have to plan how you are going to meet that goal. You want oranges in the house, then you have to plan it. How do you get the oranges? When you plan, you come down to different options. That is either you order the oranges online, or you go to the mall to get the oranges, or you go to the local market to get the oranges. You can even decide to plant oranges and wait for the oranges the orange tree to grow old, and then, I said grow old, you wait for the oranges to be ripe and pluck, although that may take years, but it's still part of the plan. There's nothing called a stupid idea, but I'm just listing out the options that you have when you plan. Okay, then specify is where you pick the one that is most suitable for you. How badly do you want that orange in the house today? Is it something you can wait 3 years for you to plant the orange and grow the orange tree and all of that? If you can't do that, then you have to go to the mall. This is where the abilities of the user comes to play. Is the user somebody that can go out? Can they walk? Is it somebody that has access to the internet? Can they just easily um, order the oranges online? So that's where the specify comes into play. Then perform, they buy the oranges and things like that. So these stages are just like breakdowns of what happens in the bridge of execution. You want oranges, how do you get them? What are the steps that you need to take to get the oranges? The world part is where you get to interact with the world, with the external world, and you get to perform that execution. That is where it's taking place. Is it online ordering you are going to do? Are you going there by yourself? This is where exactly it's taking place. So if you are ordering online, that means the action is taking place on your phone, and then you are interacting with the outside world through your phone. It's just as simple as that. Then perceive, when you've done the action, you try to look at it like, okay, what just happened? Did I just place an order, or did I just buy an orange physically? Then interpret is just saying, okay, this thing that I've done, what exactly does it mean, and all of that. So I'm going to, if you look at my screen, this next image is just showing the meaning of each of the stages. So we have, from go, you have plan, specify, perform, then perceive, interpret, compare. The compare is just the last stage, that you're trying to compare the results of what you are doing with the goal that you set initially. And you can see from this number 4 here that you have 7 stages of the action cycle. So basically that's what I just explained. You have your goal, you have your 3 stages of execution, and then you have your 3 stages of evaluation. If we go back to this image, you have, what do I want to accomplish? That is your goal. These questions are just questions that these are questions that answer what each stage means in the action cycle. The goal is asking, what do I want to accomplish? The plan, what are alternatives? Specify, what can I do? Execute, how do I do it? Then perceive, what happened? Interpret, what does it mean? Compare, is this okay? Are these oranges good? Is it what I want? Is it ripe? Is it sweet? You are eating the oranges in your house now, and you just found out that they're actually lemons, not oranges. That means you did not see it very well before you placed the order, or you just saw fruits that were round and green, and you took them. You thought they were oranges. You get home now, you discover that they're actually not oranges. That means your goal was not met. So basically, that is where you evaluate your actions. I've explained the gulf of execution and I've explained the gulf of evaluation. Let's move on. Number 5, we must replace failure with learning experience. Yes, this is very important. As designers, we must take every feedback that we get that users are not getting it right with this product, or let's say you design something and you are testing it. Yes, testing is very important. You design a product or a screen or a website, and you are testing it, and you realize that users are finding it hard to use the website, or they are not using it as intended. Don't say that, oh, you have failed, or you are not a good designer, something like that. Take it as a learning experience. That means you are learning more and more about people, which is really the whole point of design. It's about learning user behavior, learning human action, human behavior, and then designing around them. That's basically what chapter 2 is about. So, okay, no, that's not what I mean. There are still some other things in chapter 2. Yeah, from everything that we've talked about, we have 7 fundamental principles of design. Yeah, from everything that I've said, if you check this image here, Yes, I wrote on the other side, feed forward is done through good use of signifiers, constraints, and mappings. That is, you are feeding forward. Everybody knows what feedback is. That is communicating the results of an action. That's evaluating. It's the results of an action. So when the user is about to do that action, there's something called feed forward. That is, you are giving them guides, you are guiding them to taking the right action in the right way, in the way that they can. So it's just simple. You need to use signifiers, you need to use constraints, you need to use mappings so that they can do it the right way, so that they won't have errors when they are taking that action, so that they can do it the right way, and then they can now compare it that, okay, does this meet my goal and all of that. So yeah, that's that. So the 7 fundamental principles of design according to Don Norman, based on these 7 stages of action, are discoverability, that is the ability to know what is possible, then feedback, conceptual models. The conceptual model is just like an idea of how something works. It's like an idea that you need to communicate to people. So if you want them to correctly use your product, you must actually give them like a good conceptual model of how it is, so that they will have it also at the back of my mind. Because okay, there's something called mental model. That's like people's idea of how something works. Like when I plug my phone to the wall, like the voltage or something comes through the cord and goes into the phone, something like that. But by the time they introduce all these wireless charging docks and things like that, obviously I need to create another mental model, because there's no cord for the voltage to run through. I don't even know if voltage is actually running, but then that's my mental model of how it works. So people have different mental models, and the idea is that as designers, you need to communicate the right conceptual model so that people will understand more about the product. Now, affordances, I've mentioned affordances, signifiers, mappings. Mappings are relationships between actions and controls. Yes, that's basically what it means. Relationship between actions and controls. You want to operate, you want to turn on your light or your fan. Where is it? How do you control it? And we know that natural mappings are like the best to use. And you know that when you want to increase something, you know that naturally in many cultures or most cultures, up means to be higher, right? And if you raise your hand, it means like volume up, or like it just means higher intensity, higher volume, higher things. And when you do like this, it means it's low. That's basically mappings. Mappings is the relationship between controls and actions. Then lastly is constraints. Constraints are basically guides that help people take the action the right way. And I'm probably going to say 1 or 2 things about it too later. Chapter 3 is knowledge in the head and in the world. Yeah, this is a very interesting chapter as well, and it talks about how the human memory functions, how we remember things, and the relevance of this topic to designers. That is, how designers are meant to create intuitive products based on the fact that the human memory cannot work on its own. We need knowledge both in our heads and in the world. So yeah, basically the first point here is knowledge in the world are visible instructions or clues. Yeah, knowledge in the world, instructions that you see, push, pull, you see a red light, green light, basically things that help you know what you are doing at this time, or things that help you or guide you in the right direction to your goal. Everything that you just see around you is knowledge in the world. And the second one here is knowledge in the head, that is your memory, including procedural and declarative knowledge. I think in the book there was an example there, very remarkable example about people writing their passwords in little notes and hiding them under some places that are not as conspicuous. Like, because it's as if they don't fully trust the knowledge in their head. They don't fully trust their memory to always remember. And It's as a result of, I mean, I don't blame them. It's as a result of their companies asking them to change their passwords every 3 months. So it's kind of hard to keep up. And by the time you are loading the memory with a lot of stuff, you get tired and you are going to probably forget these important information. So what do? You put that knowledge in the world. That is, you write them down, or you set reminders, or you put them. We have apps now that help you store your passwords. I mean, all these native iPhone apps that just create strong passwords for you and store them. All these are knowledge in the world because you don't have to store them in your memory. Now, procedural and declarative knowledge. Procedural knowledge is knowledge that you've acquired as a result of doing something. That is, you know how to do it. It's about how to. You know how to, like driving is a procedural knowledge. But declarative knowledge is just something that you know. It's like knowing what. So you know, for example, the capital of a country like Nigeria. A lot of people might even say that Lagos is the capital of Nigeria, which is wrong. The capital of Nigeria is FCT, Abuja, and people don't know it, but they think they know it. This is still memory in the, it's still knowledge in the head because they think that they know it. So by the time you ask them for that declarative knowledge, they are going to declare that Lagos is the capital, which is wrong. So it doesn't have to be right, but it's something that you think you know and it's part of your knowledge in the head. Yeah. So I've explained procedural and declarative knowledge. The third point here is good design reduces reliance on memory by externalizing necessary information. Good design, I don't know if you guys have heard of this book, Don't Make Me Think. Yeah, you don't want your users to think, you don't want your users to start remembering. So you have to put in clues all over so that they know what they are doing, they recollect some information. We're not asking you to give them clues to their passwords or stuff like that, but you just make it very easy for them to remember. Make it easy for them to remember how to complete a task on the website or on the app. Just make it as intuitive as possible. The fourth one, we have constraints. Constraints, that is physical constraints, cultural constraints, logical constraints. They guide user behavior effectively. Physical constraints are just like physical attributes of a design or an item that make you know that, okay, this is how to use it. You see a key, and you see the door. You from the properties of the key, when you hold a key like this, from the way the key is structured, you know exactly where to put it. If it's like a key card or the normal key that you put into a hole, you know that you're supposed to insert it somewhere. But if it's a key card, then you see something, you are like, okay, is either I swipe or I just tap it to scan. Things like that are physical constraints. Cultural constraints, semantic constraints are there as well, and they all guide user behavior effectively. If you want to know more about this, just read the book, because like I said, it's actually impossible for me to explain all the details here. Then short-term memory can hold about 5 to 7 items, and I don't know, there's this particular law. I don't know if you remember Hicks law. Hicks law states that you should limit the number of options so that people can quickly make a decision. Essentially, this means that because we have limited capacity to hold information, we can hold about 5 to 7 items in our short-term memory or working memory. That means that you should not overload the user with options. You should limit your options to 5 to 7 so that users can easily make a decision. And there's another thing that was said in the book, that when you have those 5 items in your short-term memory, when you add one, you are displacing one. So as you are adding more to the short-term memory, you are losing some. So you can't load 10 at a time, you can't load 12 at a time, except you start practicing or rehearsing it. You can't recollect all of them at the same time. So as you are adding to the list, you are removing from the list. Don't overload the user. That's basically what Don Norman is trying to say. Now, reduce the load on human memory by using good natural mapping. This is very important. Yes, I explain natural mapping as a way of just using the natural cause of things to add controls to our actions. Now, if you want to reduce the load on human memory, an example that was given here is if you have a row of, if you have different lights in your space and you want to design the controls for those switches, that is important that you follow the location of those lights and just design the switches, make the layout appear exactly as it is in your space, so that it's going to just be easy for people to look at the outline and just map them to the lights. Another example that he gave is the oven. I mean, your cooker, your stove top. Okay, you have like four different burners on your stove top, and you are trying to see which control is for which one. So it gave different ways of you arranging the controls so that when somebody is coming there for the first time, or even people that have been using the product, by the time they come there, because it's an everyday gadget, by the time they come there, they know exactly what knob controls which burner. Yeah. Let's quickly move to chapter 4. Chapter 4 talks about one, constraints are powerful clues, limiting the set of possible actions. Yes, constraints are basically things that, I don't want to use the word constrain, but then they limit what is possible. Do you remember the example I gave initially, like a key? When you are holding a key, the shape, the size, or the basically the physical attributes, they tell you how you are going to use it. Basically, that's a physical constraint, and these are things that show you how you're expected to use something. So they limit the possibilities that are present. They tell you that, okay, these are like the few ways in which you can use this thing. Let's say you log into an app, or you sign up, and they are telling you, okay, because you are from Nigeria or because you are from this part of the world, then you don't have access to these features. It has happened to me a lot of times. These are constraints. I'm not taking it personally, it's just an example. So they are already limiting the set of possible actions that I can do. That's a geographical constraint. So yeah, that's that about constraints. Let's move on. Number 2, human-centered design is observing human behavior and then designing around it. I've explained this. Then 3, designs should use natural mappings like stove controls that correspond to burner positions. I've explained this as well. Then forcing functions can prevent errors like car ignition systems that require the brake pedal to be pressed. Yes, the very first time that I moved a car from point A to point B, I like to say that thing, like moving the car from point A to point B, because I didn't want to say, oh, the first time I drove a car, because for me then it wasn't driving, it was just moving the car. So I moved the car, and the person that taught me told me that I had to like press on the brake first before I start the car, because that was just how it works. So yeah, basically that's it. So you're forcing a function. You're trying to say you have to do this thing first before you do other things. You understand? And I think I like Power BI. I don't know if you guys use Power BI, but it's like a data visualization app. And if you are using the Power Query, if you want to close it, it's going to ask you to save. This one, I don't even think it asks you to cancel or anything. You are definitely going to save your work. So yeah, that's forcing functions. Then ambiguity in design leads to user frustration. I don't think this needs any explanation. Yeah, let's quickly move to chapter 5. Human error, no, bad design. Like I said earlier, about 80% of what we call human error are actually from bad design or bad products. Now, two types of errors: we have slips and we have mistakes. Slips occur as a result of people that already know how to use the product just accidentally doing something wrong. Okay, this is usually done by experts, and it means they have the correct goal, but they executed it wrongly. They know what to do, they know how to do it, but they did it the wrong way. Now, yeah, an example that I put here is hitting the wrong button. So you already know what to do and how to do it, but you accidentally hit the wrong button. That's a slip. It's not really a mistake, according to Don Norman. Now, a mistake is an incorrect goal or an incorrect plan, and is usually done by novices or newcomers, newbies, people that are not yet familiar with the item, with the design, with the tool, with the gadget. Is either the user doesn't know what to, or the operator of the device. So let me not just limit it to users of the product. The operator of the device or the user of the product, they don't know what to do or how to get there. Sometimes the goal is incorrect. That is, they don't even know what exactly they are meant to do. Yeah, so these are mistakes. One important way of preventing human error is what I wrote in number 2. Put the knowledge required to operate the technology in the world. Put the knowledge required to operate the technology in the world. That is, don't fully rely on human memory. Don't rely on knowledge in the head don't make users rely on knowledge in the head to perform their tasks. So put the knowledge required in the world. Then make error reporting easy. That is, when there's a problem, make it easy for users to report that error. Error tolerant designs help users recover from mistakes. For example, providing undo functionality reduces the impact of errors. When you realize, because obviously it's not all the errors or mistakes that can be undone. There are some that you just can't undo, but as much as possible, try to give users the ability to recover, to come back from their mistakes. Now, the last thing here is that good design can save lives. Good design can save lives. If you look at design beyond mobile apps, look at design beyond websites, you realize that design is literally everywhere, because everything is designed. Airplanes are designed, roads are designed, cars are designed, electric vehicles are designed. So if you are a good designer, you have to start thinking about all these things. We have to start thinking about how our design decisions are going to impact people's lives, because the wrong design, one wrong design can wipe out hundreds of people at a time in an accident. So yes, that's that about that. Okay, we're almost at the end of the video. This is chapter 6, which basically talks about design thinking. This chapter focuses on how designers are empowered with knowledge and skills to help solve users' problems. And yeah, the first thing here is that designers are trained to discover the real problems. There's one part that really emphasizes on this. Designers don't just, when stakeholders tell designers that users are experiencing this problem, you don't just take that problem and run to your desk and start working on it and creating solutions. As a designer, you want to discover what exactly is causing the problem, and that brings you to the root cause analysis. You want to know exactly what causes the problem. That's why you have to keep asking why. you know 5 whys and the likes. Like, there are different methods of doing root cause analysis, but the idea is that you want to know exactly what the root problem is, not just the symptom, not just the surface problem that was reported to you. Number 2, follow the iterative, human-centered design process. And this process is observe, ideate, prototype, and test. You don't have to, cram all these steps and things like that. You just have to understand them, internalize them. Know that observe is when you are discovering the problem, you are observing the user, you're engaging in user research. Ideate means generating ideas, getting ideas from people, brainstorming, just getting ideas. And like we all say, there are no stupid ideas. Just make the ideas as much as possible. Just keep generating ideas. Then prototype. Prototype means like creating mock-ups or sketches of the proposed solution. And test is testing different variations of the solution. Test and then improve on it until you get until you get something that actually solves the user's problems. The third one here, embrace a user first mindset rather than relying solely on aesthetics or technology. This is pretty straightforward. User first mindset, that is human centered design. Don't just rely solely on making things pretty or using technology. The next one, collaboration across disciplines enriches the design process. Yes, this is very important because you are not just operating in a silo. You have to work with people in other teams, like marketing team, like the growth team or the sales department. You have to work with developers. You have to work with product managers. You have to work with customer service or customer support. You have to work with a lot of people, and you don't just want to sit down and just be designing on your at your desk alone. You have to talk to people. Design is just about talking and relating with people. You want to know what they think. Their own perspective also brings a lot to the table. The last one, inclusive or universal design, means designing for people with special needs or special abilities. This is very important to note as well, because inclusive design is something that we don't see it as a premium feature or a special feature. It's something that should actually be in designs, and not just design of everyday things. In all designs, roads should be accessible to everyone, gadgets should be accessible to everyone, buildings should be accessible to everyone. So when we are designing, we have to take note of people that have special needs, people with wheelchairs, people with visual impairments, everybody. And another thing that I noted from the book was that yes, inclusive design eventually becomes something that everybody enjoys. When you design, okay, you want let me see the example that they use. I think I've forgotten the example, but I'm trying to make up one now on the spot. Yes, a very good example is when you have ramps. You know, ramps that people use, people with wheelchairs, those slopey, this walkway that goes like this. Those people with wheelchairs cannot use staircases, so they use ramps instead. And you know that nowadays you even see that people that don't just feel like using the staircases, they use the ramps. Even elevators, you realize that in many countries they provide elevators because of people with wheelchairs that cannot ascend the stairs. And you now realize that people that can walk on their 2 feet, they also use elevators. So eventually inclusive design includes everybody in the long run, but we should just make sure that the people that really need it don't have to ask before we provide them. Yeah, the last but not the least is chapter 7, design in the world of business. Number one, we must combine good design with business and technological constraints. Yeah, this is very important. It's not just about you designing, it's about you designing to meet the needs of the business as well. It's not just about the user, although it's mainly about the user, but also you have to consider the business, because if you design and nobody buys it, I think I put it somewhere here. Yes, the number 6, but we are coming to that. If you design a product and nobody is able to use it, or you design the product and it's not usable, the company is running at a loss because the product is not usable. Obviously, it's not going to work. It's a bad design. Yeah. And then technological constraints as well. You are designing things that your developers are not going to be able to implement, or they don't even have the resources to do that. You are designing a mobile app, but you don't have a mobile app developer on your team. Or let's say you are designing for an Android phone or something, and you're adding native elements from iOS to the designs. You just have to make sure that your designs are not out of place when it comes to business and technological constraints. The next one here, too many features ruin a good product. Yes, and this is very important, especially in a very competitive landscape. We understand that our clients, our founders, our employers, everybody that we design for, or the people that pay us to design, they are trying to stand out from the crowd. They're trying to make their products exceptional, but you don't want to, you need to come in at some point, because if the features are getting too much, they're actually going to ruin a good product. You don't want to make your product bloated with features. When there are so many things to do, the user gets overwhelmed. Don't forget 5 to 7 items. So if you see that the features are getting so much, you can probably suggest to the stakeholders to probably create another product with some of these features. Successful designs align with user needs, market demands, and technological feasibility. This is basically what I said in number one. So if your design is going to be successful, or if your product is going to be successful, that means they must solve users' problems. That's number one. They must solve users' problems. Then they must align with business needs. That means the business has to be profitable. The product must yield value. And number three, they must be within, or they must align with technological feasibility. It must be possible to develop your designs. Don't design dribble standards that people cannot develop. Now, four, iteration and feedback loops improve products over time. Very important. You need to improve your products over time. And how do you do that? You test, you get feedback, you implement them. You test, you get feedback, you implement them. It's a loop. It doesn't end. You keep improving by testing, by getting the feedback and implementing them. Good design can differentiate a product in competitive markets. Yes. So if you're trying to improve your products, you just make sure that you focus more on the user part, and like, it's the user that really determines whether your product is going to be successful or not. Is whether the user buys it or purchases it or not. And if your design is bad, they are not going to purchase it. They will go to your competitors. So you have to stand out using good design. And lastly, this one is the controversial part that I talked about in the beginning of the video. A design that people do not purchase is a failed design. Is this true or not? I kind of agree, and somehow I don't agree, because a design that people do not purchase is a failed design. I don't want to say a failed design. I think, excuse me, I think it could have been worded that a product that people do not purchase is a failed product. I think I agree more with that, because just shifting everything to design, I get that design in its own sense does not mean the product design. You get, it's just like the overall design, like the production of that item. So a design that people do not purchase is a failed design. Sometimes things are just out of your power. Sometimes you can't help the marketing aspect, you can't help the sales aspect, you can't help so many things as a designer. So don't beat yourself up that, okay, the product has failed. It doesn't necessarily mean you're a failure as a designer. And like I said earlier, Don Norman said in his book, somebody said it in his book actually, that you take failures, you remove failures, and you replace it with learning experiences. So don't think that you're a failure as a designer if the product does not sell. There are many factors that are beyond you, but then still try as much as possible to make sure that at least that fault is not on your end. You understand? And also keep improving, keep opening your mind to things, open your mind to possibilities. Now that technology is moving faster than people, we need to keep designing to catch up, but we actually never catch up, because by the time we are designing and they are developing, we are researching, we are designing, we are developing, before you know it, another technology is out and we have to start doing for that one as well. So just keep an open mind and all of that. So yes, we've come to the end of the video. I hope you liked it. I hope that, I just hope you liked it. I was really excited about finishing this book. I've read it 3 times now actually, and I'm not going to read it again. I've had enough of it. So I'm going to just open my mind to other books, and I'll be I'll be summarizing them much later in the year. But then I hope you like this content. If you did, please like, comment, subscribe, and share to your friends, especially those in UX design. And if you want to get the book please check my description. I'm going to add a link after this. Just check the description. The link is there. You can purchase the book. And thank you very much to everyone who has subscribed to my channel, and those who haven't, please do so and turn on your notifications so that you don't miss any of my content when they drop. Please share my content, subscribe, comment, engage, like. Just keep the page active, keep the community growing. And if you have questions or comments, feedback and everything, use the comment section or send me a direct email or message by clicking on the link in my profile. Thank you very much everyone for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.